When you think of crazy, what comes to mind? Take a second to think, and I'll wait. Quiet and reserved, having sure knowledge of something you, a normal person, could easily shrug off. Someone with a half-cocked head, eyes falling to amass any sort of expression, and mouth expelling a holler so intense their jugular veins begin to pulse. All this while standing in the middle of a street, wearing nothing but a robe on loose-fitting skin with cars cautiously passing by. Or is it more subtle, more graspable? What about the silent slip of humanity down a pitless void? No. Why did those cars drive by the man from before? Why did no one bother to help him? Was it because they were too busy to help? No, not at all. It wasn't fear, either. A scrawny man without anything but his own demons in his possession isn't going to harm anyone. No, it's humanity's disconnected from anything but the self. A homeless man screaming or wallowing in the smell of piss and vinegar on the street corner, looking for even the time of day can't be bothered with. You've done it, and I've done it. People like this take on the essence of an ant to most. That is to say, they are low in our world, in what they view, that they disappear into obscurity from our sight to carry on their business. To most of us, these include homeless people, or anyone deemed as crazy, or simply put, unfit in society, as they were immediately ousted. However, this state of pre-prescribed delirium is their own reality. A cannibal eating a corpse doesn't wonder if what he is doing is wrong. They only dream in wonderment at the complex flavorings of their next meal. After all, we all need to eat. People who commit violent crimes without burning, driving emotion, or doing so for the bliss they feel when performing such acts. These days, I'm not quite sure what piece of normality I fall into anymore. I suppose my descent or ascent into this state needs a touch of exposition. I remember the days when things seemed to fall into a state of typical normalcy. I had a job, a house, and a child. My child no longer lived at home, and I typically contacted her regardless, at least once a week. Once a year or so, I also visited my wife. I took the day off from work to make sure I could have an appropriate amount of time with her. When I went to check in at this time, I could tell my daughter had already been. I placed my flowers next to my daughter's grave before I left today. It's odd. I thought, my daughter never really speaks to me anymore. Our conversations were brief at the most, and she never really wanted me to visit. Not sure why, though. I suspected it had to do with her newly found freedom of living on her own. I remember standing there, in that space near my wife when it began to rain. As I left, I remember there wasn't any puddles on the ground. How strange, I said quietly to myself as I felt my face. It was cold and wet. I felt a tug at my head. An invisible hand pulled a curtain over my eyes, and the next image I had, any actual memory of, was sitting in my house at my kitchen table. Everything was gray in the room. The walls were bare, dark, and quiet. The neighbors came to check up on me from time to time. Not really sure why they did, as I told them I was fine the day before. I remember raising my head from the table and looking up. I saw an empty rocks glass next to me on the table with my hand, white knuckle, gripping a pistol. I let go of it, a second thought, and placed it back on the shelf. Strange. How did this get here? I wondered. I figured I had used it or had been cleaning it earlier. I shrugged it off and continued on with my day. Before I could remember hearing a wailing of a scream coming from somewhere. I checked all around my house, but couldn't find anything. I paced around my house, hearing the scream come from several directions. Damn, that's loud, I thought, just when I heard a knock at my door. It was my neighbors checking in again. Him and his wife. I forget their names. Hey, how are you feeling? Good. Did you hear something? No, what are you I grabbed my hand and let out a scream myself. That noise! Don't you hear it? My neighbors both took a step back. Sometime later, when the noise stopped, I looked up. It was darker now, and the streetlights were on. God, looking back, I miss those days of simplicity. I went back inside and looked at the clock. The blackouts were getting longer now. I found myself almost dragging throughout my house. My body felt heavy as it guided me throughout the corridors. At least, the screaming had stopped. I glanced at my phone, and I hadn't forgotten any emails in a long time. Things around me seemed to be drifting, but I'm not sure why. Tomorrow was Monday, however, and that meant work. I vaguely recall trudging up the stairs towards my bedroom. Halfway up, I noticed a sudden glow from the kitchen. The glow illuminated the phone on the table. When had I put my phone down? I thought. It illuminated again, but I ignored it. I went to bed and fell asleep to the sounds of the wailing scream again. I had a dream that night. Same one I've been having for a little over a year now. My wife sat naked in the center of a black space. Not a room, but simply a voided space. She seemed to hover almost while there. She opened her arms as if beckoning me to come to her. I obliged and started to amble towards her. Like always, I saw her face. Her pinpoint pupils blackened, and her gaping mouth no longer bothered me as they once did. I instead focused on other things. The scent of rose petals she had once adorned. I yet approached her with blissful abandonness. If only I could make it to her this time. But the dream ended. I never seemed to get closer. And although her arms were outstretched, I never seemed to meet her grasp. Oh, how I longed for it, even just one more time. My face felt what? My face felt... I can't speak. My face felt wet again. Simultaneously, her face, too, began to leak tears of pain. This time, they were saturated in pale crimson. I felt all the more compelled to comfort her. I began to run, and the more I did, we both seemed to sob. Her mouth voiceless and fully agape, an opening wider to an inhumane size that almost eclipsed the entirety of her face now. That's when I heard it. Another scream. Another upheaval of underworldly, echoing noise that penetrated my mind. Fierce and unrelenting, but not coming from my beloved. It was engulfing me as my form began to shrink. My wife seemed to tower over me now. Her almost featureless face, nothing more than an open pit, and nothing more now still, seemed to be looking at me. An open maw into hell, but a heart that I needed to embrace. Like a drug, even if this door consumed me whole, I would do anything to embrace her again. I felt a pull on my head, like from before. A jolt of what seemed like electricity. That's when an image flashed before my eyes. I was at the bottom of the stairs, and I looked to see my pistol on the shelf. Or, at least, the case in which I kept it in. It was unlocked, and the bullets were missing. At this point, my dream pulled me along. I saw myself drifting through the world around me, not flying or floating. I was walking, but it didn't feel real. It was dark again, and snow blanketed across the ground. I saw myself pull into my daughter's driveway. I effortlessly walked into her house. I decided not to take my car as the night was calm and the dream state seemed to compel me to walk and embrace my thoughts. I found the door was locked. My vision blacked for a moment, and the dream seemed to skip slightly. The next part I remembered was standing over her and looking down at her sleeping. I combed her hair to the side and began to remember times past when she was a little girl, running through the schoolyard towards her mother, and me ready for us to take her home. I looked down at my belt and drew out my gun. I felt a warm sensation wash over me and felt a peace that muffled the screams and the ringing in my head. She was with her mother now, I thought. I stepped out into the night, and it seemed a lot warmer than before. I went back into my house and slid into my bed. I had work tomorrow. I jolted awake. My shoulder was killing me, and I had a pain in my chest. It felt hard to breathe. I forced myself to cough and catch my breath, and I held my head in my hands. I looked at my clock, but it wasn't working. I grabbed for my phone, but remembered I had left it on the table in the kitchen. After I got dressed in my work clothes, I checked the time. I saw a few emails from work that must have come in sometime last night, and another from a news outlet I followed. The headline said something had hit our town. I also had a message from my daughter that simply said, "I love you," and it made me smile. As I stepped outside, I slowly made my way to my car and looked over toward my neighbor's house. A warm wind blew, and the silence chilled me more than any dream I may have had last night. In fact, I'd have gladly allowed those dreams to take me than suffer that silence any longer. A mournful look encapsulated my neighbor's eyes as they directed their gaze into my general direction. I looked up at them to meet their gaze. However, when their eyes met mine, I felt them glance downwards, and my body was filled with what felt like sorrow. What did they have to be sad about? I was the one with the nightmares. I was the one whose family was ripped apart. They always judged me, and I hated them for that. even now, how I feel a premeditating loathing for them. I lowered my eyes and thought nothing more of the exchange. As I made my way down the highway, I noticed an ambulance stopped on the side of the road. Traffic had come to a crawl, so that humanity could get a large fix to pleasure their nosy and morbid curiosities. I felt myself look as well, and felt myself falling under what I would describe as crazy, occupying myself with suffering of others and not allowing them privacy even in death. Why do people enjoy looking at these things? The world sure is full of unnecessary people, I thought. Unless horrid creatures that are useless. They'd eat themselves if told enough times. It may give them some gift or another. I made it to work and pushed open the glass doors. As I did, I heard two screams. One followed directly after the other, like an echo. As I made my way inside, the receptionist let out a gasp as they saw me and looked away. I ignored them and kept walking. I met my boss just outside her window, and she stepped towards me and placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. I felt my fists clench and my nails dig into the palm hard enough to draw blood. Stop checking in on me. Damn these people. I don't need your help. I met her gaze with my own before she spoke. It's been a long time. Are you okay? Sure. I looked to the side of my desk. Please, ma'am, it's called the weekend. She paused a moment. No, it's only been 2 days. Today's Wednesday. We were about to call the police. I turned my head back to her. How long was I out? No, it couldn't be true. My daughter and I hadn't spoken that week, and I had gotten a text from her today. My thoughts were cut short when she spoke again. Didn't you get my emails? Yeah, I just assumed they were for the meeting. That I guess I miss now. Her facial expression sunk, and her face became grave. No, they weren't. They were condolences and me checking in. I flew into rage. Why can't anyone leave me alone? I told you as I told them. This wasn't my fault. She paused. I thought I had scared her. Instead, she, along with the rest of the office, was just staring at me. You need help, and I'm not sure how to help you. I'm putting you on paid administrative leave. Get your head together and don't come back till you do. Between your wife and your daughter, I stepped back. Daughter. I felt a weird sensation on my neck and shoulders, almost as if someone was embracing me from behind. Arms crossed over themselves and hanging on top of my chest. I heard a noise, a whisper this time, followed by another blackout. When I woke up, I saw a man hovering over me. Hey, buddy, you can't sleep here. Come on, I'll help you home. I can see the exhaustion in your eyes. My eyes focused. I knew him. He owned that local bar close to my house. I never talked to him and had only been in once or twice before. Usually, he was always after some kind of tragedy. This time, I wasn't angry. I could only sob as he helped me into my cab. The man and the driver helped me back into the back seat, of the driver's car, and I laid down. I managed to show the driver my ID with my address on it, and off we went. As I rode in silence, my mind began to wander. Why could I never remember what happened during these blackouts? And what happened to my daughter? At first, I was going to call her when I remembered I had access to her apartment. I told the driver the address, and he acted as if he didn't hear me. Before I could say anything, he spoke. "You don't want to go there," I began to yell, but he rose his voice above mine. "That place is nothing but a pile of ashes. You can't go there." I felt my mouth gaped open, and I couldn't speak. "I always park outside the complex. I can't believe you haven't heard. It's simply gone." "I don't care," I said as I picked my head over the gap between the front and the back. "Take me. She could still be alive." He sighed and continued driving. Her phone didn't stop ringing. I jumped out of the car, still clutching my phone. The fire department and police were still there, even 2 days later. From what I gathered later, they were still investigating the scene, assuming it must have been intentional. The owner was losing clients, and he was too nice for his own good, allowing people to slide a few days over their rental period, and even cutting them deals in place of rent. Deals. I shuddered to think. Again, useless people. Scum. The police and fire department refused to talk to me, but I shoved them aside. I heard them say something about no survivors, but I was simply pushed debris aside and began my search. That's when my hand touched something that wasn't as solid as brick or metal. The skin on my daughter's arm sloshed off as soon as I touched it. I pulled her out in a panic, and her arm instantaneously detached from her body with a noise that sounded like a mop dragging across a floor. I instantly threw the contents of my stomach up, but continued to dig. There she was. I smiled as I saw not a burnt body, but my daughter. "Daddy has you. Daddy has you." I carried her in my arms, and the police tried to stop me. I looked at them with undaunted eyes and a smile on my face. Tears ran down my face, but no one was going to take my daughter away from me. Not again. 2 police officers approached me, and one put his hand on my shoulder. If I wasn't holding my daughter, I would have killed him then and there. "Please, sir, she's gone." I paused, simply glaring at him while an EMT tried to take her from me. Big mistake. I headbutted him and he instantly crumpled. I felt a jolt in the back of my legs and I dropped. A police officer put his knee in the center of my back and pressed my skull into the dirt. I tried to reach out to my daughter as she fell from my arms and collided with the debris, her neck making a grotesque snapping noise. I lay pinned on the ground. When she hit, I heard a blood-curdling cry come from her mouth. I lifted my head as well as I could and yelled. I started to seize my body in an attempt to get up, but I felt a jolt into my side and I fell silent. I could feel I had pissed my pants, but I didn't care. I just wanted to be with my family. I needed my family. Where are you? Come back to me. Please. No more tears came from me after that moment. I awoke several hours later on a concrete floor. It was daytime, and a small stream of light looked down upon me. A single ray of light illuminated my face, and I could tell it was early morning. The light looked like a pillar, like a literal eye looking into my soul, like the eye of God trying to penetrate my thoughts. I let out a cough and stood up using my hands to push myself off the ground. I found myself in a cell along with a few others. A holding cell is what I gathered it to be. However, in the corner of the cell, I saw her, my daughter. Baby! Baby girl! I hollered her name and rushed to my feet. The pain in my body was intense, but I didn't care at that moment. I felt an otherworldly strength pulse through my veins as I approached her. She was whole once more. Her burns were gone, and she approached me slowly. I managed to find her embrace, and we fell to the floor. I looked up at her face, and it was gone. Only a blank oval where a face was before when she first approached. I saw only a small hole at the top of her head. Her hug seemed to be getting tighter, and I could tell her grip was not subsiding. It felt like she would break me in half. I felt my body collapse, but I kept my balance. One of the other cellmates picked me up. "It's okay, friend. You'll make it. This cell is the only really for the drunk and the lonely. You'll be out of here by sundown." I didn't need his pity. I shot him a glare over my shoulder for a solid 10 seconds till he backed off. He didn't understand. I wanted her to pull me into oblivion. I wanted her to take me away from this place. Our family needed to be whole again. A few hours went by, and I was set free. They told me that I was clearly distraught over the death of my daughter, and needed to go home. Why? Why was everyone calling me insane? Why do they think me so over the top? I'm normal. Even now I'm fine. I managed to gather my things, and the police had kindly got me a cab. I got back to my house and hesitated to go inside. My neighbors were just outside my door, staring at me. One of them followed me in. As we entered, I ignored them entirely. I didn't even know which one it was. They were waving their arms and yelling incoherently. Their tones started to push me over the edge. I reached into the box on the top of my fridge. Interesting. The box was missing a few bullets. The lighter and fluid I kept on the fridge from when I used to smoke were also gone. I must have been walking much faster than they had, because they didn't notice me put the pistol into my hand. They spotted me and slowly approached. I heard them talking, but I ignored it. I checked my phone one last time. I wanted to see pictures of the times before all of this. Before my wife died, and before the nightmares. I stopped when I saw the text I got from my daughter. It said, "I love you." But it was also from 4 days ago. Hours before my last dream of her, I put the phone back in my pocket. It was time to go. "David, please." I pulled the pistol out slowly. I turned and shot them straight through the skull, their bodies slumping to the floor. Now maybe someone else will know what my pain is like. One less crazy, useless person out of the world. But still one more. Am I okay? No, I guess not. But then, neither are you. I threw my head back and laughed. As I did, my wife and daughter came out of the darkness, formless and pale, faces restored as they embraced me. It was time to join them. As they embraced me, the other neighbor and a few others came rushing into my house. They pointed and screamed at me. A vibration of accusation and horrified yells filled the room. I turned and walked away toward the back of my house. I locked the door that led to the outside and lay on the ground. I know the truth now. I sent my daughter to my wife, and now it was time to join them myself. As I confidently pulled the pistol toward my temple, and the same warm sensation from my dream filling my body. Maybe it wasn't a dream. Maybe I'm one of the useless and crazy ones. Either way, our family will be complete again. Well, that got really deep. Thank you for that story, Edward. Good morning. However, you missed the story. You'll have to come back after this is done. I agree. Thank you. It's much appreciated for all of you watching. Did you enjoy the story, Catherine? Yes, my cat is quite talkative. That's pretty fine. I'm usually good at improvising at parts like that. That was a very good story, though. You definitely got me hooked. I do have one suggestion, Edward, and I think you're gonna like it. What I think you should do is, obviously, he ends up dying. So what you should do is write about the horrors in the afterworld with him and his family. Good. I'm more of a gore person myself. But I range in a lot of different ways to what I like. I suppose that's a good teasing sentence. I look forward to reading it. Jin, Jacques, I'm sorry. I do not know how to pronounce that. So, my bad for butchering that. Good night to you all. Have beautiful nightmares.